podcast. John, let's shift gears. The offseason program as a whole, you're going to have a piece going up on sportsradio610.com with 10 things that you learned from the Texans offseason program. Do you care to go Costco here and give us some samples of what we could see in that piece there?
Sure. I do have one up on Monday morning about what a disaster the Astros have become.
We'll get to them, I promise. Yeah.
Having 2 4-game losing streaks in 13 days.
Yeah.
And the thing about the 10, I'm going to do one this week in which 10 that we learned from off-season program, and then I'm going to do one later as training camp gets closer, saying 10 things they need to accomplish in training camp and preseason. Yeah. And one of the things that stands out to me is the most important player on the team, C.J. Stroud, is how hard he works. He's a football fanatic. And I don't know, maybe they just don't talk about this, but other quarterbacks do it, that he talks to the defensive players and the defensive coaches to ask questions, as well as his teammates on offense. And of course, Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator, and Rod Johnson, the quarterback's coach. So his eagerness to learn and devote so much time to learning Slowick's system, that's the thing that has stood out to me, and listening to players praise him and his knowledge and that eagerness.
The cross-sport comparison that I made to C.J. Stroud, and maybe the timeliness of this one isn't great considering how poorly the Astros are playing, although this guy had a good game yesterday, I suppose. He reminds me a lot of Alex Bregman in that, Bregman is the guy, John, that when they won the World Series a few years, not last year, but a few years ago, the big joke was that Alex Bregman, they got done doing all the champagne and they all said Alex Bregman was at a batting cage the next day. Bregman is kind of the guy who's sort of the baseball gym rat, kind of the junkie, about baseball. And I get that same vibe off of C.J. Stroud. Like C.J. Stroud strikes me as a guy who they win the Super Bowl, they get off of the floats, and then the next day he's doing footwork drills somewhere to get ready for the next season.
Yeah, everybody's fired up about Stroud. He's going to have his ups and downs, and he's going to make a lot of mistakes. Whereas Will Anderson, his mistakes, he's going to make them, but they're not going to be as noticeable as a quarterback's will. So those top 2 picks, they could both be outstanding. Maybe not the first year. Remember, J.J. wasn't outstanding as a rookie. He had, I think, 5.5 sacks.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the playoff victory over Cincinnati when the J.J. Watt phenomenon was born.
That's true. You got any other nuggets you want to give the people, John, that they might find in that article?
Yeah, a lot of people worried about Laramie Tunsil missing all that time again. But watching him out there, and he's like putting your foot in a comfortable house shoe. He just slips right in, and you doesn't miss a beat. Now, he's a great pass protector. He's not a great run blocker. I think I can't figure out how this is going to work. Stroud did not have the left side of the line, and he may not add his center because Quisenberry's not going to be starting. Eventually, it's going to be Juice Scruggs. So the center, left guard, and left tackle weren't there at all together starting. But they're going to, we don't know when Kenyon Green's coming back. But Tunsil, he's the best player on the team. He's the safest bet that anybody can have about a player who's going to do well. And the other one was Derek Stingley Jr. A lot of people around the country said, oh, that guy's not as good as Sauce Gardner, and he wasn't, even though he was taken ahead of him. But he's going to be used differently. And he looks like he's hit a weight program and he's gotten stout. And I was watching him one time run down the sideline, man coverage. I can't remember which receiver it was, but it was a fast one. And he stuck with him in the pass at the last minute. He leaped and he knocked the ball away. And his teammates came over and patted him on the back because they know that's why he was drafted. He looks because he's healthy and he's put on weight, which makes him stronger. He looks like a big-time player.
Yeah, knock on wood with that health thing with Derek Stingley Jr. for sure. All right, so John, we'll be able to see that article up on sportsradio610.com. They want to get the other 7 or 8 things that you learned from the Texans offseason program. That'll be going up this week?
Yes, it will.
All right, good stuff. We're looking forward to that for sure. All right, before we get to some for real or fugazis, let's mix in some Astros talk here. As John just mentioned, as we record this, they're in the midst of their second 4-game losing streak in the last 2 weeks. And they had a real opportunity to make some headway in the AL West, John. With the Rangers have not had a great week either. And the Astros actually find themselves further behind the Rangers than they were when this stretch of poor Rangers baseball started recently. In fact, the Astros, for the first time in a long time, find them at this juncture in the season, find themselves in third place in the AL West.
Now that we're on YouTube, I can show what I think about them without
I was
saying.
wondering what you were doing.
I'm holding my nose because
like
they stink. I was wondering when you were going to ask what I was doing.
John, I was looking down at my paper and I looked up. I'm like, does John have a bloody nose? Like, well, I thought maybe you had a nosebleed or something. Was John gouging away on there and he has a bloody nose now? So, yeah.
The way they're blowing leads, yes, they have injuries. I detail all their injuries in that column on Sports Radio 610.com, but that's not the problem. Because blowing a lead like that and and getting swept by the Reds, even though the Reds are red hot, it's inexcusable because their best players are not producing. You look at the bullpen. Rafael Montero's been terrible. Ryan Stanek's been terrible. They were terrific last year.
Yeah.
Ryan Presley had given up runs in 3 games in a row, cost Fromber and Christian Javier great outings, and he did come back against the Reds and pitch a good inning. Phil Maton has been their best reliever, and he got shelled by the Reds, but he bounced back with a good inning on Sunday. And then looking at the hitters, all these Jose Abreu defenders, it's laughable because he has a couple of good weeks, but overall he's still been a big disappointment. And he has not generated any consistency. He's awful on Sunday. Jeremy Pena is not the player he was at the end of last year when he was MVP of the ALCS and the World Series. Bregman is about on the pace he had last year for home runs and RBIs, but less on his average. And Kyle Tucker last year, 30 homers, 107 RBIs, hit 257. He's way under the pace of both of those, but he's hitting 285 and his on base percentage is up. But and Altuve's only played 20 games.
Yeah.
And some things I don't understand that Dusty Baker does. Yainer Diaz has 4 hits last week, not playing the next day. Altuve, 4 hits, not playing the next day. Okay, for a guy like Diaz who needs confidence, and I know you tweeted this, and I did too, that kid's got to be in the lineup. He's red hot. You got him and Corey Julks and even Jake Myers and Chas McCormick and especially Mauricio Dubon. Those guys are doing as well as they can do. I don't blame J.P. France, Brandon Belak, or Ronel Blanco. They wouldn't even be in the rotation if it wasn't for the injuries. But the players who have been good have to be good again consistently. It's their worst record for 72 games since 2016, last time they didn't make the playoffs. And do you know the last time the Rangers had a record better than this and what they did and what year that was?
The last time they had a record better than this, 2016. They won the division
right.
that year. Yeah.
They had a 70, they played 71 games.
Yep.
And the last time they had a better record was 16 when they won the division while the Astros were watching on big flat screen TV.
Yeah.
So,
like that one.
I don't know. The Rangers are, they got within 3.5, stunk it up against the Reds. 5.5. The Angels are ahead of them. The Mariners are 3 games behind. At this point, Sean, all we can say for sure is they're not going to finish in last place in the AL West.
No, that's impossible. Yeah, no, they could, John, they could put you and I as the double play combination. They're still going to finish ahead of the A's. All right, I'm about to post this. We're going to do some For Real or Fugazi's rapid fire style in a second. But John, I just want to get your quick answer to the question I'm about to put up on Twitter on a Pender poll for Astro fans. Who do you most blame for the team's slow start? The 4 choices: the players, Cranebag, interim GM, Dusty Baker, Dana Brown.
The players. Dana Brown didn't get here quick enough to get any blame. It's the players because of the reasons I just gave. Their best players who are healthy are not producing the way they have.
Yep, agreed. I'm with you. To me, it's players. I think there's blame to go around for everybody. Yes, least of all Dana Brown. Like Dana Brown's going to spend more time fixing the problems that Cranebag, interim GM, created this year than actually being able to go out and forge his own forge his own path with this team. So
one of the things that the Braves did when he was there, they give long-term contracts for a lot of money. They do things that the Astros don't do. I wonder, Kyle Tucker's hitting 285 compared to 257 last year, and even though he's not on a pace for 30 homers and 107 RBIs, I wondered if they had paid him the extra $2.5 million to avoid arbitration because he came in, he was unhappy. Would he be better? But I'm guessing no. I'd love to see what Tucker could do all the time, hitting behind Alvarez, and maybe put Pena behind him and dump Abreu. You know, they have a great record when Pena bats 2, but they're not batting him 2 anymore.
Yeah, I don't understand. And Bregman's a great cleanup hitter. I was saying when Altuve was out earlier in the year, I'm like, man, they just need to get Altuve back, get Pena in the 2, Bregman in the 4, where everybody's comfortable, and obviously Altuve leading off. And Dusty did that for a little while, and both guys were hitting, and then he starts moving them around. Dusty might be second on the list, honestly, the way these lineups have been. All right, so I just put that up on Twitter, and that poll, who's most to blame for the Astros' slow start? All right, John, you ready for